Smart SLP here. How's it going? Kim Neely. I am out here doing a video on, listen, okay, I don't know. This isn't super well scripted right now, and this is something that is something that I get really upset about, so I'm not exactly sure how well this video is gonna go. But it's something I want to get off my chest because I'm preparing for another training I'm giving next week, and, with just the current everything going on in the world today, I felt the need to come on here and address something that's just been getting under my skin just a bit here, which is the fact that whenever people in positions of power come up with, start talking about, like the Autism Registry in the US, that whole idea, which I guess got shut down, or at least publicly they said they're not doing it. I don't personally trust much of what they say, but anyway, and in the UK, the trans laws are getting hella scary, and they're already scary in certain areas of the United States. It tends to depend more on the state at the moment in terms of how scary, but it's still pretty scary out there. And I think what's driving me nuts is that you get all this commentary online where people want to debate the stats, right? Because part of the propaganda against these groups is always the stats, the prevalence of the problem, how there's more people diagnosed now with autism and ADHD and all these other neurodivergencies or whatever, mental health things. And this is a crisis, clearly can't possibly be due to more knowledge and acceptance and access to diagnoses for people in marginalized groups, like people of color and such. No. Has to be something else wrong, right? And they always propose it as we got to solve the solution. We got to solve the problem. Same thing with trans, right? They equate trans people with sexual predators, which those two groups are not the same thing. Not the same thing at all. Okay. You could have a trans person who is a sexual predator, but that's just because humans as individuals can be very complex and can belong to several statistical groups. It's not because those things actually relate to one another. They don't. Trans people are trans people. End of story. Okay? Gender binaries are dumb. That's just the reality of it. I know everybody, doesn't want to think that, but they are. Gender binaries are stupid. Even biologically, we don't have a binary. But we do have a lot of people who never went past middle school biology, and so they don't realize that. Anywho, but I guess that's also the whole coming after people, disabled people in general. It's listen, we are all temporarily abled. I worked in skilled nursing facilities with elderly people. Trust me, we are all just temporarily abled. Okay, if you have the privilege of living a long life, you are going to lose mobility. You are going to lose the capability of doing the things you're capable of doing when you're a young adult. It's just how that goes. That's physiology. It's aging. Period. And I know the biohacker bros out there think they can stop that, but they can't, actually. They think they can, but I don't know. I feel like nature always proves time and time again that it's a much mightier beast than, a single billionaire with a tech company. You know what I mean? Anyway, hubris, I guess, is the point with that. Just tons of hubris. But anyway, I think what's driving me crazy is that, the people in power present this problem. Tale as old as time. If you want to control people, you make them scared. You put them into survival mode and you say, this group is a threat to your way of life. This group is a problem, right? And I think when it comes to regimes, evil regimes, when it comes to regimes who wouldn't bat an eye at genocide, the question for them just becomes which group that they target is the one they want to start with, right? I think that's the reality of the whole Autism Registry. It was just, what group do we want to start with? And when they got backlash, they're like, oh, woo, dial it back. I guess not that group. That's all it is. It doesn't mean they're not coming after people. And it doesn't mean they're not coming after autistics at some point. And I don't mean to be fatalism or doomism, is that what we're calling it? I don't know. I just want to be real here, Because I see a lot of videos with a lot of advocates out there, autistic advocates, trans advocates, advocates out there get online, they do their research, especially autistics and neurodivergence in general. I think we have this tendency to want to go to the data and the objective truth, and we want to debate the statistics with the actual real statistics, and because that changes our minds, right? Like my mind is changed by good evidence, right? I will actually internalize those and think about them and allow that to change my perspective. But most people don't operate that way. And that's the actual truth, is that all that facts, all the stats, all that stuff, it doesn't change everybody's mind. It actually changes very few people's minds. Dehumanizing rhetoric and polarization and propaganda against certain groups, whatever group they pick, it's insidious, right? It's pervasive, and it's all predicated on this idea that there's a social hierarchy that is somehow either God ordained or just the natural way of things, or whatever terminology they want to use. 19th century was manifest destiny in the United States, where white people were like, yeah, we have the divine right to take over this entire continent, basically. And, that idea did not disappear. And so I guess my whole point here is, don't do that debate stuff. Can we just not engage in those debates the way the genocidal people in power want us to engage in them? I think they want to drive it as like, see, we have stats, we have evidence, we have stats, or we just need to do our own studies to figure it out, to find out, right? Can't trust the actual experts that already done all those studies. No, because those experts found facts that were opposing to our own worldview. So we don't want to find those facts. We want to find alternative facts. We want to find the ones that support what we think, right? And what they think, let's be clear, when it comes to autistics, the disability community, trans people, immigrants, particularly immigrants of color, when somebody comes up with these stats of like, this is the number of people on disability and there sucks on the system, or number of autistics who don't have jobs or can't hold jobs. And then, they go through all the bullet points. They try to talk about prevalence and diagnoses and how the kids are being turned trans. Not that like kids were trans to begin with and didn't have the communication or the knowledge or the language to explain it, and didn't, have the ability to like express that and actually be their true selves. Oh, no. It has to be something else, right? That's causing the world to change. Can't possibly just be the march of time and societal advancing, right? Heaven forbid that like the human race just progresses and becomes more globally communal. Oh no, God forbid. Connecting us globally makes some of us more compassionate toward just humans in general, whether they're different from us or not. Oh my gosh. But basically, yes, to advocates out there and stuff, here's the thing. If somebody comes up with like, but what about the high rate of diagnoses? What about this? What about that? I wouldn't engage in it, quite frankly. I wouldn't whip out my statistics to prove that, yeah, it's still only 3% of the population, which is actually not that high. And increased awareness leads to increased things like women wearing pants. That's my big example. Everybody talks about left-handedness, but I'm like, what about just women who wear pants? Because evangelical conservative women wear pants for the most part. But like 150 years ago, that would never have happened in that group. So society changes is my point. Humans change. Basically, I'm sick and tired of trying to prove that certain groups of people deserve to exist. That's the debate I don't want to take part in, quite frankly. I don't want to take part in debates like these people, but they do deserve to exist. Let me prove it to you. No. Because the truth is, if people out there, if they want to think of themselves as kind and compassionate and good people and doing things for the good of society, if you want to be that kind of person, if you want to think of yourself as that kind of person, the fact is you have to actively choose to be that person over and over and over again. And you have to actively choose to not engage in any rhetoric that leads towards the eradication of a group at the end of the day. When you're talking about groups of people, Groups of people who say, hey, we've always been here, man. We just didn't have a label. We didn't have a stat because nobody called us anything other than like freak weirdos that nobody likes. You know what I mean? Like, if people already exist, they already exist. Step off, man. You're not going to get rid of them. If people have always existed, if a certain type of people have always existed, they're going to continue to always exist. They're going to continue to show up. That's just how that goes, okay? Like, welcome to the world. I don't know what to tell you about that. Making it illegal doesn't make the thing go away. Making trans people illegal, making it illegal to be trans doesn't make them go away. You know, making it illegal to get an autism diagnosis doesn't make autistics go away. Making abortions illegal definitely doesn't make abortions go away. Those things have existed for millennia. You know? It's just a facade, right? It's just drawing a curtain over the problem to say, cool, we fixed it, because you can pretend, you can imagine to yourself that somehow setting a law eliminated this thing that has always existed, which is not how it works. Enter the, that's not how any of this works meme. Like, good Lord, people, this isn't how it works, right? So if you're an advocate out there, just don't engage in this stuff, okay? Just let's leave the prevalent stuff out of it. Better question would be to ask, why does it matter? Who is it going to help if we figure out how to stop making these people exist? What is the end goal with that path? Because I think people would be hard-pressed to debate that question and not end up sounding like a eugenicist or somebody in support of genocide. That's the reality of where that train of thought goes to, right? So if you want to be someone, if you want to identify as compassionate and empathetic and all that stuff, you have to choose to be that kind of person. You have to choose to be somebody who has the desire to respect and learn about humans and understand them, even if they're different from you. You have to make that choice to try to understand that and not just go along with whatever people are telling you about those people, right? So every time a different type of person, a different type of culture, a different type of whatever is presented to you, and people point at them and say, see, they're a danger to society. Those people, not good. Danger to society. You have to step back and go, wait a second, what? Like, who are these people? I want to understand them first. I can make that judgment on my own. You know what I mean? You have to choose not to automatically believe when people say they're dangerous and they shouldn't exist and we got to get rid of them. That's a choice you have to make, right? And it shouldn't matter about the stats of what people come at you when it comes to crime or whatnot, because a lot of that stuff gets incredibly nuanced. You get into like trauma effects, you get into like all kinds of mental health stuff, you get into systemic barriers, systemic adversity, you get into discrimination in the systems that are determining what is criminal. You get into unjust laws, right? That stuff's complex. That's why if you're not the person who's going to fix all that complexity and or recognize that complexity, step it back, right? Take a seat and think. Is it actually the people that are fundamentally bad? That particular group of people just are fundamentally bad? Or is it that this person is trying to get something? What's the grift here, right? What power are they trying to attain with this, right? So-called leaders right now in the world, there are some so-called leaders. I'm sure some of them don't want to believe they're doing something horrible. Some of them don't straight up don't care. But some of them probably don't want to believe they're doing horrible genocidal things for their own gain. You know, and I'm sure, you know, they want to say, I have good intentions at heart. I just want to make, you know, I want to make the people in America more healthy, or I want to make the people in the UK more safe. I want to make women in the UK more safe. They'll say stuff like that. But the truth is, no, they do not have good intentions at heart. They do not. That is cognitive dissonance right now. That is their brain convincing them they're doing something good when they are absolutely not. They have selfish intentions at heart. And that's why they don't care. They don't care about the impacts that these laws make. They don't care about the persecution. They don't care about you. They don't care about me. They care about their bank account. They care about their perceived value in the world as a person, right? As far as they define value, right? If they define it by like how much money you have, that means they're more important if they have all the money. Yeah. So then you start debating like the value of people who don't have that money. You can't win that. Unless you're one of the people who has equal amounts of money, you can't win that debate. And like, it just makes me so furious, this whole debate off of like what lives are worth what. If you value human life just by a number, just by the finances, if that's how you're going to define the value of a human life, then you must be someone who benefits financially off of those lives, right? Like, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. That is so dehumanizing to just sum up a human life as a number. Listen, the truth is, they are actively dehumanizing people, developing propaganda around that, discriminating, polarizing people, and they're doing it on purpose. They're doing it to convince you it's a worthwhile debate, and they're doing it to convince you that you need them to protect you from those people, right? And the whole goal of this is just to figure out which groups can they go after first before people get too pissed. Okay? We all know that famous poem. I'm sure we've seen it so much. The whole like, first they came for the Jews poem, right? And it's like, yeah, first they came for the Jews because there was long-standing millennia established hatred for Jews. So it was a very easy group to target. Made people pretty compliant with that, right? And we can update that poem. We can update it with immigrants, trans people, autistics, DEI hires, women, disabled people, homegrowns. You can come up with whatever label you want, and they're still going to just find a group to target first, and then they're just going to keep on trucking. The truth is, I'm really tired. I'm tired of hearing about these debates, and I'm angry. I shouldn't have to come at anybody with stats if I'm pointing to any kind of human, regardless of their social group, medical status, whatever census group you want to say. And I say, yep, that's a human, right? You should be like, yeah, it is a human. Good call. And we stop it there, right? And then we think, let's treat that human with some modicum of like dignity and respect and equity. You know? And like, oh yeah, maybe we should. That's a really good point. Yeah. You know? Because I'm sick of it. Autistics are scared. Trans people are scared. BIPOC groups are scared. Lots of us are scared right now. Right? And all these powerful men, these supposed smart men, they're genocidal. They promote all this crap. And they think they can just dehumanize whoever they want. And they can just throw around stats and sound smart doing it. You know? They can always move the goalpost to another group. If one group gets if it turns out a little too hot touching that group right now, they can just shift it to a different group and just come at that other group later. That's the actual reality, okay? So they're using the same rhetoric that previous tyrannical societies across all the millennia of human societies. This stuff is nothing new. It's the same BS rhetoric that people use again and again and again. And you have to actively choose whether you engage with it and whether you believe it or not. Okay? And then the real critical bit is you have to act on what you choose to believe, right? You have to act on your actual values. So if you actually value compassion, if you actually value being a good person, you have to act on that. You have to make a choice to care about people regardless of whether they're the same as you. You have to make an active choice to do that. And I'm really tired of people calling themselves supposedly a follower of one religious leader who was very well known to care for the poor and the outcast and the stranger at the city gates and the widow and heal the sick and all this. You claim to follow that person and like you don't put anything into practice. I'm tired of it. If those are your values, you have to act on those values. Period. Full stop. Okay? So I know this is a bit of a ramble and a bit of a rant, but I thought of this little like litmus test for like, is something dehumanizing? Okay? So here's what I want folks to do. Here's what I want you to do with me. All right? Just for a reflection question here. All right? I want you to think of something that you think sounds completely ridiculous to discriminate against. I mean something like people with fingers, people with hair versus not hair. You know, sure, there's the classic eye color one, but that was used, you know, that's been used, so people might debate that, I don't know. But, you know, people who have heads, okay, which is like As far as I can tell, most people alive tend to have a head. People who wear pants versus like tunics. Okay, I don't know. Sure, let's discriminate against people who wear pants. And like, if you put that group in for any of the groups they're talking about, when they try to talk about the dangers of transgender people using bathrooms, put it in there as people wearing pants. What about women who wear pants? Or should they be allowed in the women's bathroom? I don't know. They might be kind of dangerous, those women in pants. If it sounds ridiculous for you to think of women wearing pants should be banned from women's bathrooms, but then you put in trans people and suddenly it's not ridiculous, red flag. You're being bamboozled. That's a sign of discrimination and dehumanization and just genocidal rhetoric, man. That's what that is, okay? So I think what I would say is, let's not engage with the whole debate of trying to prove that humans like exist and that a group of humans is not a monolith and that they deserve some level of respect and dignity and, I don't know, like due process. Don't engage in the debate the way they want you to. Just don't. Like, I have a few scripts that are my go-to for this, and if you have better scripts, please put them in the comment below, because I would love that. I would love a collection of some scripts to say to just shut these kind of debates down, because it's driving me nuts. I hate it. It's all over my social media, which maybe it's just my algorithms or whatever, but I'm so sick of seeing it. So if you have some good scripts, let me know. Some of my go-to is like, I don't know. It just sounds like they're humans to me. Humans are complex like that. There's a lot of individual variance. I don't believe that the whole group is like that. I've also said things like, I don't automatically just fear people just because they're different from me. I just make a choice not to do that. I determine it on my own. You know, this isn't Neolithic times. This isn't like I have to make that determination before they steal all my sheep. Like, you know, it's not the kind of world I live in. So I don't have to make that decision so fast, you know? And if it's a one-on-one situation, then it's not a group of people I'm making a decision against, is it? And then it's just a single event that I'm deciding to survive. Like, that's just survival mode there, baby. Just, all right, cool. Let's do what my brain thinks is the best shot I got, right? Like, whatever. Or just call it out directly, quite frankly. That's another way you could go. Like, you just sort of ask curious questions, right? Like, well, okay, I hear that you're worried about the prevalence, but what do we do with the people already diagnosed? What happens to them? What is the end game? What do you think would be the good goal for autistics or for trans people? What would you like to see happen? And see where it goes. Chances are good the more you ask why they think that or what do they want from that type of questions, they'll probably talk themselves into, I'm starting to sound a little like a monster, and they might get a little embarrassed. And so then it's time to like reflect a little, like, see, I don't know. See, that's where I think this stuff gets kind of dangerous. Yeah. Like, I wouldn't be comfortable putting you in a group of people and saying that that's right to happen to you. Right. So like, I wouldn't want to see that happen to you. And I'm sure you don't want to see it happen to other people. Right. It's like part of that like reflection of like, get them to think about like, what would it be like? Oh my gosh. Get on that reasoning brain, have them think through things and their own experiences and stuff and be like, yeah, wait, actually, hold on. Because if people are just stuck in survival mode, the reasoning, the compassion, the empathy tends to leave, right? That tends to get checked at the door. And it's valid to have anger. It's valid to not have that at all times. But like, if you want to engage in the debates, let's all calm ourselves down and let's just ask very reflective questions perhaps, or just shut it down. Like, just set boundaries and like, no, I don't listen to that. That's not true. And I don't buy it. Right. Like, I don't really want to have that debate. No. Set the boundaries depending on context, time, of course. It's like family members. It's a whole separate thing. But anyway, let me know in the comments below. Are you sick of hearing this stuff? And if you are, what are your go-to scripts? Because I think that's needed at this point. What are your go-to scripts? If you've helped people sort of reason through it, how are there certain questions you think are good to ask them? If you're actually having an honest, calm conversation, not if you're putting yourself in a position to just be like verbally abused or even physically abused. Like, don't engage with that. Stay safe out there. Okay. As much as we can. But, I do want to leave this with a little bit of hope because like, it's tough right now, and I think we could all use a little hope. So my hope, my point is, like, I think one of the biggest things I've seen that gives me a lot of hope right now is the fact that there are a lot of people who are fighting. There are a lot of people speaking up, right? Whether online or otherwise. There's a lot of voices speaking up. And there's people who are regretting the state that things are currently in. And are they full on to the point of accepting people different from them? Probably not. But at least it's a start to be like, I think you were tricked, right? Like, we got to work on how you can learn to not be tricked again, right? Like, let's not be fooled again. And let's figure out how to stop this right now. Stop this march we're currently on. We've got to figure out how to stop this, right? Let's do that together. But like, community is super important in these times. Banding together is super important. I know there's a lot of the fatalism, is it doomerism? Is that what we're calling it these days? Where people online are like, no one's doing anything and nothing is effective. And that's not really true. The pushback does have impact. Even if the impact is just to make certain powerful people scared, that's still a good impact in my book. That's still an impact. That's still power, right? They want us to be scared of them. Let's make them scared of us. That's our power, right? And protests are great places to connect and to feel. It's a great place, I think, to get that feeling of a community and a connection, and like to, I guess, to just not feel so alone in the struggle, right? I think that's a really important piece. And also, if you start to feel a little too fatalistic about everything, just get off social media for a bit. Do the whole, what is it the Gen Z thing about touching grass? I feel like that's Gen Z that started that, to go touch grass, but it can be a good thing, you know, to just like get off, because the algorithms might be feeding you that a lot. And let's not play into it, you know. Find some news sources, find somebody who's giving hope. Because that's really important to hold on to right now. It's the antidote to all the fear, I think, is hope and connection and community. That's how we might be able to flip this, in my opinion, in a big picture way. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to get that off my chest. Let's all take care of each other out there, all right? And until next time, guys, use your weird powers for good. Let's build a nice, safe, weird community here and keep it weird in that sense, all right? Till next time.